Hello, good people of the internet. It is with a very sad, a very heavy heart that I've turned on my mic today because the episode that I'm going to be recording today is going to be around a very sad, a very almost a devastating incident that has happened in Kolkata, West Bengal, India, where as of today, as of the date of recording of this episode, it's just been a week since a 31-year-old doctor was found brutally gang raped and murdered in an institution she was interning in, I guess. And it has caused unrest throughout India, of course. It's caused unrest, a huge amount of unrest on social media, of course, but also on ground. So there are doctors protesting all over the nation. There are student bodies. There are feminist groups who are protesting all in various cities throughout the country, demanding the principal of that college to be terminated, not just for him to resign, but to be terminated. And then there are people demanding capital punishments for the culprits. I think we are all demanding at least for the culprits to be found, the right culprits to be found. It's crazy. It's absolutely devastating, honestly. But what I wanted to do today in this episode was not talk about the nitty-gritties of the case, not talk about the nitty-gritties of what has happened and what needs to happen, how the investigation needs to be done, or what needs to be done to the culprits. That's not my forte. That's not what I want today's video to be about. I know there are a bunch of other videos on those topics regarding this situation. What I wanted today's video to be about was something that I feel is missing in the discussions that are happening around this subject. Something that I feel a lot of people want to understand better. Something that I feel a lot of people miss out when they're thinking about real solutions to problems such as this. And yes, that is what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. I think this will be even more free-flowing than my usual podcast episodes. The big mic is out, so that means it's going to be a free-flowing episode, but I do not have a complete framework of what I'm going to talk about. There are some bullet points, of course, like always, but there are a lot of things here that I want to talk about and a lot of things here that I want to talk about in today's episode. So stay tuned. This is going to be a good one. Let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I wanted to talk about today would be about awareness. Awareness. Isn't awareness the buzzword that usually you see almost prevalent throughout your social media, throughout articles written about this kind of an incident? Because everyone feels that we have to make people more aware. We have to raise awareness about this issue. We have to raise the level of awareness of everyone around us to understand the situation better, etc. And I want you to question something here. I want you to dig deeper into this. You need to ask, we are making whom more aware, and what are we making them more aware about? And the answer usually is that when it comes to all of these Instagram posts that are being shared, when it comes to all of these articles that are being written, for almost all of them, we are trying to make men more aware that you should respect women. We are trying to make men more aware that you should make women feel more safe, or even that you should not be raping women. Now, I feel that sharing this post on Instagram, do you really feel that there is any target audience on Instagram? There's any man on Instagram who follows you who's going to read this and say, this is where I was wrong. I was never told that I should not do all of these things. I'm not trying to ridicule these posts. Quite honestly, I'm not doing that. I know this is coming from a very pure source from whoever is sharing it. But we have to understand that it is not this awareness which can actually solve this problem. Primarily because you are not making anyone aware of something that they don't already know. Every human being, every man on your Instagram, almost every man would already know this. So your target audience is definitely not on Instagram. I can tell you that. There are going to be a bunch of uneducated and illiterate people who need to know this because they may not. They may quite literally not know that it's not okay to beat women. It's not okay to rape a woman who's not consenting to you, etc. There are men who are like that, but they're not on your Instagram. So yes, I think at some level then we need to make the illiterate more literate. We need to make the uneducated more educated. And I think that's obvious to everyone too. But then, is there some other level of awareness that we need to raise among people? Because I don't think it's only the uneducated who commit such heinous crimes. Quite honestly, it is quite often educated people who end up committing such crimes and such violent crimes at that. So what is the missing piece? I think awareness is the missing piece, but awareness of what? I think what we need to work towards is to raise the level of self awareness of people, to raise the self awareness of not just men but also women. Of course, in this case, you have to focus on men, but we need to, as a species, become more self aware. Let me just pause here for a minute and come back, and we'll keep building on this topic of self awareness. We were building on self awareness, and I was trying to make a case for why self awareness, raising the level of self awareness and raising the level of consciousness of our people, is actually the real solution to this problem. Here is what I mean. There is a tendency, dormant or expressive in all human beings, which makes them take advantage of other human beings, especially when they can. If you are in a position of power, it's almost obvious that there are going to be thoughts in your head that you can take advantage of this person, you can manipulate this person for your own good, etc., etc. And we have seen that happen almost throughout our lives. I'm sure you've seen your mom do that to her maid. I'm sure you've seen that in your office somewhere, you've seen that in your relationships, in your friendships, etc., etc. It is a tendency that is present in all human beings, and that is actually in its extreme form what leads to such heinous crimes. Of course, I'm making a simple case for it, but none of this really means that there is no difference between, let's say, manipulating your maid versus raping and murdering someone. But the difference is one of degree and one of kind. How much you take advantage of someone and how far you're willing to go to actually take advantage of someone. But at its very core, it is this tendency, it is this thought that all of us have at some level in our consciousness, in our own psyche, which makes us take advantage of another person if we can. And that is what we need to become more aware of. Because unless we do that, we are only watering the bud that is actually going to flow into the tree, one of the branches of which leads to such problems. I mean, look at it from this angle. There are people who are extremely enraged from this incident, due to this incident, and of course they should be. It is a very devastating incident. But then what they're demanding now is that these people should be hung, or these people should have their genitals cut out brutally, or they should be burnt alive in the city square, etc. Now, if you look at it very closely, this violence, this need to actually see this violence happen, is the problem, is the core of the problem that we're trying to solve. This violence against someone whom you can now commit violence against is actually the part of the problem. Now, that doesn't mean that I do not want the culprits to be punished. Of course I do. I mean, I think we should hand them the most severe punishment that we human beings can. But I don't think that should make you happy. I think that should actually make you sad. I mean, what a waste of a life. What an insane thing. That I think it's almost obvious to everyone that murdering someone is not sane. But then, isn't it a paradox that we are going to legally have someone murder someone? It is a paradox, and it is a paradox that we need to sit with. Because if we sit with this kind of a paradox, it will definitely raise the level of our own self-awareness. And we can actually start to see where real solutions to problems such as this lie. I mean, think about it in your own life. Think about how comfortable you are with some kinds of violence. I mean, I think half of the population of the world right now is quite okay with violence being committed to animals. They are quite okay with literally slaughtering animals in the name of rituals. And this is not just Muslims I'm talking about. There are Hindus, there are Christians, I know a bunch of other religions which still practice sacrificing animals, slaughtering animals in front of kids, in front of everyone present, in the name of rituals. Now, is that really something that we look at being done, and we should be feeling comfortable with this happening? That is the animalistic tendency in us human beings. And if we really want to not see these kind of heinous crimes being committed, we have to overcome this animalistic tendency in us. We have to become more self-aware of our own operating system, because these tendencies exist in all of us. A human being is, after all, an evolved animal, and therefore all of us have these tendencies somewhere dormant or somewhere expressive in our own psyche. And the core solution to actually solving this problem will be to raise the level of self-awareness of yourself firstly, and then people around you. Because consider for a moment, when will you say that this problem is solved? When will you say that now I've solved the problem and now I don't need to share all of this outrage on my social media, etc.? I think none of us has the answer to that. Quite honestly, I don't have the answer to that either. But what I feel is, as an individual, maybe you would be able to say that for yourself, that I've solved it for myself, because I'm becoming aware of my own psyche, I'm becoming aware of my own thoughts, and if such destructive thoughts appear in my consciousness, merely the fact that I'm able to observe it and not act on it instantaneously just tells me that I'm bigger than this thought, and therefore I'm bigger than my animalistic nature. And if you can do that, and if you can teach other people to do that, that is where we want humanity to head. But unless we do that, we will always see some sort of extreme expressions of this animalistic nature occur every now and then. So if you want to be a part of the solution here, what do I say? Do I say something controversial here? The next time you want to watch porn, the next time you want to watch some violent porn, hold on to that thought and don't act on it. And if you can start to do that, you know you're becoming a part of the solution. Because that tendency to actually gravitate towards this animalistic nature, this instant gratification of your animalistic nature in its extreme form, that is what leads to crimes such as this. And therefore that is the awareness that we need to spread amongst men, amongst women, amongst kids. I think everyone needs to become more self-aware. We need to upgrade ourselves to a point that every kid who's between 7 to 10, I guess, should be able to discern better from worse, should be able to think about their own thoughts. I don't know when kids can start to do that, but I would like to see a humanity where kids of a very young age are able to do that. And then there should be every single human being of the age of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, till whenever we live, if we are able to raise our level of self-awareness to the extent that when a thought pops into our head, we can see, we can observe it. Merely by observing it, we can say that I'm bigger than this thought, and therefore I'm going to discern whether I'm going to act on it or not. If we can start to do that, we will start to conquer our animal nature, and I think we'll start to see a real solution to this problem. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about with regards to this subject is centered around all the corruption and the politicization of the entire issue that has been happening, etc. Now, it's devastating to read reports such as the fact that when the incident happened, the first reports that reached the victim's parents was actually that she committed suicide and that she wasn't raped or murdered, etc. What do you even say to that? I mean, that's so low. That's almost the lowest of humanity. And now there is all of the politicization of the issue happening. There are politicians lobbying money to get everything covered. And of course, we would never get to know the exact details as to who is the scapegoat, who is the actual culprit. I hope the culprits get punishments, etc. But the entire issue is so disheartening, isn't it? I know there are people of good faith who are actually very disheartened when they read such reports that these are the politicians that we have elected, these are our leaders in some sense, and this is how they are behaving. And then of course everyone or a lot of people go onto social media or their WhatsApp groups and they share things about wanting to have better leaders. They share things about wanting this corruption to end. And again, I want to talk deeper about it. Where do you think those new politicians will come from? Where do you think those new leaders will come from? Where do you think those non-corrupt leaders would come from? Where do you think the current leaders come from? They come from within us. They come from within the fabric of our own society. And I want to talk deeper about this because this is going to be something that is pinching. But I want to pinch some nerves here. I know that the smartest people around me are busy making money. That is the highest purpose they have ascribed for themselves. Not just making money, I'm sorry to say that, not just making money, but to have more comfort, to have more luxury in their lives. That is the highest purpose that almost everyone around me has ascribed to their lives. Now, if that is the highest purpose in your life, Why do you think that a politician would not have the same purpose? Why do you think that the leader of such a society will not have making more money as the highest purpose of their life? They are not becoming politicians to actually improve the society. They are becoming politicians just to make money. And they are running elections to win elections. They're not running elections to improve the society. They're not, again, I'm generalizing. I do not mean that every single politician is like that, but the ones who are not are, of course, the exception. They are not the norm. The norm, we can all say, are people who represent the society, the mindset that we all have in this society. We all want to have more money. Even after we have made enough money, we want more money. Even after we have enough comfort, enough luxury, enough, we want more, because nothing is ever enough. And so the people who want better leaders, they have to wake up. They have to understand that they should be the better leaders that they want. We really need better leaders, but where will they come from? If someone who's running for elections and they do not have enough comfort for themselves, it's almost a superhuman effort to expect that person to not be lured by money, right? But then who will not be lured by money? Who has enough, maybe, or who has at least understood what is enough for them. And that can come from within us. And therefore, this is the nerve I want to pinch. If you really want better leaders, if you really think that your calling could be to become a better political leader, to form a better political party, why don't you do that? It almost kills me, it almost disheartens me to see people all around me. There are very smart people all around me. And the highest purpose they have ascribed to their life, like I mentioned, is having more comfort, having more money. Or the highest purpose is to optimize the time of an API from 55 milliseconds to 50 milliseconds. I'm a technical guy, therefore I'm saying that. Of course, I'm not saying that these are bad things, but at least try and see where you're doing that. Do you really think that the highest purpose of your life is to improve the API time of an e-commerce company, or to ensure that whatever technical things are happening at the back end of a mobile application are the best they could be? Do you really think that's the highest thing that you can do? If you really think that's the highest thing you can do, at least focus on which e-commerce company or which mobile application you are directing so much of your life energy towards. Because unless you do that, how can you really expect to become a part of the solution? Because the tendency of us human beings to focus on our petty little lives and only to become more and more comfortable within our own selfish aims is exactly the problem that we want to attack here. And therefore, again, I know I might be pinching some nerves here, but that needs to be done. This kind of an incident should almost be like a nightmare that wakes you up. We've all had those bad dreams, that some days just wake you up and you feel relieved that you're out of this bad dream. Incidents such as this should serve as that wake-up call for all of us. Not all of us, but at least to some of us who can see that the highest purpose in their lives is not what they've been focusing on in their waking hours. And when you suddenly realize that this kind of a situation has happened and I'm demanding things to be fixed, it's almost like I've offloaded my responsibility of fixing this problem to someone who doesn't even care about the solution. And therefore, what does that tell you? That tells you that you need to be the one to solve that problem. If any of this resonates with you, and if you have still not checked out my Beyond Politics video series with Rocco Jarman, I highly recommend you doing that, because that is where we talked about why we need better leaders, why we need a game change in our politics. How did we arrive at the current situation? And then we also talked about what can we do as a society, as individuals, to actually fix our politics. And the fourth video was, of course, a summary of the entire thing. I would highly recommend you doing that, because if not now, when? And if not you, who? And now I want to give some final concluding thoughts before I end today's episode. Everything that I've talked in today's episode, raising the level of self-awareness, raising the level of consciousness, becoming the leader that you really seek, all of these things, I know that we do not need everyone to act this way, but we need a critical mass of people to start to act this way. Why? Because once we have a critical mass of human beings actually acting this way, actually acting from a self that is higher than their petty little selves, we will we will see a change in our collective consciousness that cannot be missed. I really hope, I really dream about a stage in human consciousness where we will have this as almost a default functionality in human beings, that we are able to see our animalistic desires, we are able to see our animalistic thoughts from a very young age, and we're able to discern better from worse from a very young age, and everyone to start to do that. And I think that is a dream that is worth working towards. Why wouldn't you want that dream? Why wouldn't you want that sort of a utopia to manifest on this planet? And again, I know that not everyone is called out to actually act in that direction, but that is a dream that you can stand behind. And if you feel that the biggest part that you can play towards a higher dream is sharing stuff on your social media, on your WhatsApp stories, in your WhatsApp group, etc., I think this episode is something that you should definitely share, because what I've talked about in this episode is definitely something that should resonate with people who are in your followers list on Instagram, in whom the calling towards a higher purpose is lying dormant, but they need this sort of a wake up call. They need this sort of almost a jolt to wake them up from their dormant dream to actually manifest something beautiful for all of us. So if you think that is the highest part that you can play, it is no small part. Play it with grace. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you share this with your friends. Make sure you share this in your community wherever you can. And I, with a hopeful heart, I started with a very sad, a very heavy heart, but I'm ending this episode with a very hopeful heart. With a very hopeful heart, I bid you goodbye, and I hope to see you in the playground soon again. Until next time, peace out.